Unix operating system, how process management is carried out in Unix operating system as a case study. So this unit we are divided into three parts: introduction part, which is the theoretical part, then scheduling examples, scheduling algorithms we are going to study. We'll compare these algorithms with each other, and third part is case study of process management in Unix operating system. So what is a process? In first,
Program and execution.
program and execution. Process is active entity or passive entity?
Active.
Active.
Active entity, correct. Slides are visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So in this today's session, we are going to see what is a process, that is concept of a process. Then operation on processes, how to create a process, terminate a process, different states in which process can belong to, from its creation to the termination, the states the process will go through, and how this transition takes place from one state to another state. And context switching is the concept when we ask one process to stop and allow another process to execute. That is, in multi-programming, multiple processes are executing at the same time. So that is called context switch. So we are going to see all these operations, how to create, terminate, what are process states, then transition between one state to another state, and context switch. So in today's session, we'll cover these 2 points. Next session, or some points we can keep it for the next session. Then scheduling criteria, we need more than 4 lectures for each scheduling algorithm, at least 1 lecture for each scheduling algorithm. That is first come first serve, FCFS. Then shortage job first, there are 2 variations. One is preemptive, another is non-preemptive. We call it as shortest job remaining time first, SRTF, that we are going to see in the next session. And round robin. So these 4 algorithms, FCFS, that is first come first serve, shortest job first, SJF, and SRTF, shortest remaining time first, and round robin. These 4 algorithms we are going to study in detail and compare with each other. This part is not there, introduction to threads and benefits. This part is covered in unit number 6. And lastly, case study of Unix process management. So these are 3 topics we are going to see in the unit: scheduling criteria and case study. To start with, we have seen operating system execute variety of programs. So these programs can be called as jobs, task, or process. So these 3 can be used as synonyms. In batch system, we call it as job. Time shared system, it is called user programs or tasks or processes. Textbook, various textbook uses different terms like job and process almost interchangeably. If they are mentioning job scheduling, that is similar to process scheduling. Process, rightly said, a program in execution. A process execution must progress in sequential fashion. Means when a process is executing, each instruction should be executed sequentially. Have you heard about program counter, PC? In hardware, in microprocessor?
Yes, ma'am.
So what PC does? What it stores? Program counter?
It stores the address of the next instruction to be executed.
So all the instructions are executed sequentially, and the CPU or OS knows that which is the next instruction to get executed because of PC. Program counter stores the address of next instruction. So when the program is loaded into main memory, it is called a process. And what process include? Process include program counter, which points to the instruction going to get executed, stack, and data section. Process states. So process executes, it changes the state. I'll show you state diagram first. Or we start the camera. When process is created, it is in first state of a process is new state. Whenever the process gets created, it is in a new state. Now from new state, process is ready, but it is not ready for the execution. Process is created, but for execution of a process, it needs resources. And if resources are there, the process can be in ready state. Process can be in ready state. So, from new to be in ready, process needs to get all the resources required for execution. What are the resources? Library files, memory, some resources, hardware, software resources, etc. The process is ready to run, but still it is not running. It is saying that I am ready to run, I am equipped with all the resources. Then from ready, process can be in running state. From ready, are you able to see this part of board?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So all the processes can be in ready state, P1, P2, P3. New process is created, say P4. Whenever it gets all the resources, it is added into this queue. It is transferred to ready queue from new state to ready state. Now, CPU, OS will decide depending upon these algorithms, FCFS, SJF, SRTF or round robin or other algorithms, which process should be scheduled for execution. Running means in execution. CPU can execute only one process at a time. So suppose P1 is selected for execution. So the process is running. So from running, process can be complete the execution and terminate. So this is a normal or natural flow. Process is created, process is ready to run, process is running and then terminated. Okay. But sometimes process can be again scheduled back to ready state. If new process, high priority process arrived, then that process can be scheduled for execution and currently executing process, which is not yet finished its execution, can be brought back to the ready state. So process can come back to the ready state or can go to wait state. Ready state. And then again back to ready state. And then it will continue execution and terminate. So what is new state? Process is being created, new process which is created. Ready, running state, instructions are being executed. Running means process is executing, you are getting the output. Waiting is the process is waiting for some event to occur. Process has to wait to read data from a hardware or to display something. So CPU will be idle in that case. So process has to wait. So it should be in wait state. Ready state, process is waiting to be assigned to the processor. Here the spelling mistake. It should be a processor or CPU. Process is waiting to be assigned to a CPU. And terminated process has finished its execution. So these are 5 states. New process is getting, whenever process is ready, first time it is arrived, it is called new state. Then from new state, it gets admitted to ready state, ready for the execution. From ready, it is scheduler dispatch. You can see this word, scheduler dispatch. The scheduler decides which process to be shifted to running state. Then based on interrupt can be a time quantum if the time assigned for that process is finished, or if high priority process arrived, then that process is terminated and taken back to ready queue, or from running it can go to wait queue, wait state or ready state, and from ready it can come back to running state, and from wait it can go back to ready state and terminate. Any queries about these states?
Ma'am, is this the same as that instruction pipeline in microprocessor which we learned?
Yeah. Instruction pipeline is in running mode. So when process is ready for execution, when it is executing, there we have a list of instructions are getting executed sequentially.
ma'am, can you please repeat? Ma'am, what's the difference between this and that instruction pipeline?
Instruction pipeline is in running state means process is executing, currently executing. Whenever we have main memory. This is main memory. Your process is loaded here. These are the instructions at particular address, and program counter is pointing to the current instruction. Whenever this process is executing, the process is in running state. Process is in main memory. Only what are the changes are going on with the operating system and process states. Process can first, whenever the process is loaded into main memory, it is called new process. When it is ready to run, ready with all the addresses, suppose you have address room A, comma B, but we didn't know what is address of A, what is address of B, then this process is not ready to run. It should know what is address of A and B. So from which memory location you have to read the value of A and where we have to put this value into B. So you should know all memory locations initially. So the process is loaded into main memory. So that is new. When all the addresses are resolved, everything is ready, then it is ready state. When operating system assigns this process to running or execution, when CPU is executing these instructions one by one, then it is in running state. In between, CPU can assign to another process, and all this state of the process has to be preserved at the back end on secondary storage. A new process should be assigned to CPU. And when the turn of that process comes again, the process can start executing whenever it was stopped. That is the next point I am going to execute. But all these instructions are in main memory, are in instruction queue or instruction pipeline.
Okay. Yes, thank you, ma'am.
About instruction pipeline or program counter, which is a hardware layer. And what OS is? OS is the abstraction. This I'm giving you this new state, ready, waiting, terminate. These states are only one flag, only one bit is used to store whatever these states are, processes in whichever the state. Yesterday we have seen, Saturday we have seen shell commands. You have studied ls command, listing, long listing, ls minus l. So in that it was giving you the states, in which state process is, or we'll see process commands also in this at the end of this session. So it can tell you whether the process is terminated, started, running, R, S, T. So only one bit, not a byte, only one bit is assigned to represent all these states. So this can be running or terminated or zooming. So this is a software part. What we are going through is operating system, how operating system does process management. And now before starting with process management, first we are going to see what is a process and what are different process states and how this process is transferred from one state to another state. Any queries about these 5 states? You have to by heart this diagram. You have to understand all these states. New state means whenever the process is ready to run. When you press Ctrl R in C, or when you in Java, when you press run button, that triangle, then you ask process to run. You send this process for execution, but it is not immediately scheduled for execution. Operating system decides when to execute that process depending upon current load. Process is going through all these phases, which is a user or programmer is not aware about. We didn't know process is in ready state, waiting state, terminate state, or running state. We can just see process executes and it gives you the output. So new process, it is admitted to ready state, ready to run to terminate. This is a natural flow of a process. But sometimes when high priority process arrives or process has to wait for certain event to happen, process is dispatched from running state. Either it can come to ready state with interrupt, or for IO or any other event, process has to go to wait state. And when this input output operation completes, or when that event completes for which process was waiting, process is again ready for execution, and from ready to run to terminate. Is it clear? All 5 states? Any queries? Process control block. So what happened when here up in process in execution, and it is interrupted by any time quantum or IO event, it has to stop there and come back and again resume the execution. So whenever it resumes the execution should start exactly where it was stopped. So these process states must be preserved or stored somewhere. So these states are stored in process control block. Information associated with each process is stored in a data structure which is called process control block. What it stores? Process state, whether the process is new, ready, running, waiting, or terminated. Then program counter, current instruction next instruction is going to get executed. Then registers, then scheduling information, which scheduling algorithm CPU is using for this particular process. Then memory management information, how much memory is allocated to this process and how much more memory process may require for execution. Other accounting information, free space, CPU time utilized, etc. And IO status, what are different input output devices process is going to use, how many files, the access information, whether this file is allowed to open, execute, read, write, etc. All information regarding IO. Process state in which this process control block is created for every process. For every process should have its own process control block. That is the information about a process. Like we create object of a student. So for every student we have a new object. Similarly, process control block is a data structure which is created whenever process is entered into the memory. Whenever new process is created, process control block gets associated with it. It is stored in main memory and it contains the information about process state. Then program counter. Then CPU register is scheduling information, memory management information, accounting, and IO status. This is how process control block looks like. The pointer is pointing to the process or main memory offset of the process in main memory from where process must start its execution. Then process state. Then every process has process number or process ID, PID. In Unix it is called PID. Program counter pointing to the instruction getting executed. Then registers, memory limits. This process is allowed to access memory from lower limit to upper limit. Every process is allocated certain part of memory. Beyond that, process should not go. It is considered as memory violation error. Then list of open files, etc. So what is a process control block? It is a data structure. And what it stores? It stores information about process. It is created for every process. We should have one process control block. This is how CPU switch from process to process. So I have process process P0, and another process is P1. And this is a role of operating system. So currently P0 is executing. P0 is executing. It is in running state. Which state? Running state. And here the process has some interrupt or system call. And what process will do? P0 will save state in PCB0. So PCB, process control block 0 is for P0. It will save its state in PCB0, save the current state and perform interrupt or system call. And P1 is also idle, it is not doing anything. But now here P1 want to get executed. So what P1 should do? P1 has to reload state from PCB. It has to reload get what was the instruction it was executing, what was the files were open, and from where it has to start execution, etc. This information which is loaded in PCB1, it will reload it, start executing, and again with the interrupt, it has to save these states. So are you getting how this context switching takes place? CPU switch from process to process. This is a CPU. CPU is executing P0, then P1, then P2. P0, again P1, or P1 can terminate. But it is like how you use locker. So you have different lockers if you join any gym, or you have to keep your valuables. So what you do? You enter, you get it from your locker and continue executing. And when your turn is finished, you have to again save everything into your locker and go back. And again, when you come back, you have to open locker, get your things, and continue executing. So that locker is nothing but process control block, which stores the current state of a process and continue. Whenever process want to continue, it has to reload its states from process control block. Any queries about PCB or process control block?
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, in this, when the process P0 was interrupted, it's interrupted because some other process starts to take place in process
There are
0.
many reasons why process is interrupted. Process may require to perform some IO operation.
Yeah.
CPU can be idle and process is interrupted, or process has to has some problem while executing, so it is interrupted. It can be a system call or any type of interrupt. It is not necessary that every time a high priority process interrupts current executing process.
Okay, ma'am. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
There are many reasons when process gets interrupted. So a process is not finished yet. Process has to execute. So it has to save all the contents or information about current state in PCB0. What is important is note that every process has its own process control block. PCB0, PCB1, PCB2, etc. And what PCB stores? PCB stores the state. All this information, process information, is stored in process control block. So whenever process is created, process control block gets created, and when process is interrupted, the current information is saved in process control block. And when process want to resume, continue its execution again, for example, P1 wanted to resume or continue execution, so it has to reload. It has to reload states from PCB, get all the information in program counter, registers, files, etc., and starts executing. And again, with an interrupt, it has to save the information. So save information and reload information. And what happens if process terminates? This process control block is dissolved. Okay, it is deleted from main memory when process terminates. Till the process executing, process control block saves the information. Process scheduling queues. This is again very important. So there are different queues in which process goes through. So there can be many processes are getting created, but not assigned to ready queue. Whenever new process gets created, it is in job queue. This is called job queue. All the processes which are executing either in any of the states are in job queue. So any new process created is put in job queue. Then ready queue, the processes which are ready for execution. These processes which are ready for execution, suppose P1 and P2 are ready for execution, so they are shifted to this ready queue. So ready queue is associated with ready state. All the processes which are in ready state are shifted to ready queue. They are ready for execution. Every new process gets created, it is added into job queue. Then we have a device queue. If process is waiting for a device, if we have device 1, device 2, device 3, different devices. So for every device we can have queue. So these are called device queue. For example, in printer we have printer queue. So all the jobs which are assigned for printing are kept in print queue. These are device queue. For every device there is a separate queue. And process migrates between one queue to another queue. Now queue is actual hardware or actual data structure from which a process is shifted from one queue to another queue. So what is job queue? Job queue is set of all processes in the system. The process can be in any state, but the process must be in job queue. Then ready state, set of all processes residing in main memory, ready and waiting for execution. The process whose state is ready state, that those processes are shifted to ready queue. Then process is shifted from ready queue to running state, running to terminate or wait queue. Wait queue are called device queue. Set of processes waiting for an IO device are kept in device queues. Device queues are multiple for every device. Here we have different device queues for every device. And process migrates between these queues, various queues. Any confusion with job queue and ready queue? Job queue means queue of all processes, which can be in any state. And ready queue, processes which are ready to run or ready for execution. Device queue, for every device we have a separate queue, processes waiting for that particular device for getting executed.
Ma'am,
Yes?
ma'am, when new processes are pushed in the job queue, then how are they executed? Like, is it through FIFO technique, like first in, first out, or is it priority wise, like which has higher priority it would execute first? Like,
Coming to that, that decision is taken by a scheduler. On what basis these processes will move from one queue to other queue. So that decision is taken by a scheduler.
okay.
And we have three types of scheduler in operating system. Mainly, there are two main schedulers, long-term scheduler and short-term scheduler. And third is middle-term scheduler that we'll see afterwards. So long-term scheduler is called job scheduler. The job of long-term scheduler is to get a process from new state or from job queue to ready queue. This scheduler decides, long-term scheduler decides to transfer a process from job queue to ready queue. Selects which process should be brought into ready queue. So long-term scheduler will check whether the process has all needed resources for the execution. If yes, then with some algorithms, scheduling algorithms, this job queue will decide which process should be shifted from job queue to ready queue. And short-term scheduler, it is called CPU scheduler. So long-term scheduler is called job scheduler because it transfers a job from new to a job queue to ready queue. And short-term scheduler is called CPU scheduler. So here, this is done by short-term. I think camera is not on. Yes. So job of short-term scheduler is the processes which are ready to run, to shift these processes from ready state to running state. Select which process should be executed next and allocated to the CPU. This is done by job scheduler. And all the algorithms that we are going to study, those are for short-term scheduler. FCFS, SJ, SRPF, and round. We are going to study these 4 algorithms, but there are many algorithms which are available, and for different operating systems, various versions of these algorithms are available. So our operating system decides, or short-term scheduler decides which scheduler, which process to be scheduled from ready queue to running queue. Now the question is why it is called long-term and why it is called short-term. Long-term scheduler and short-term scheduler. So addition of medium-term scheduling, there is third scheduler which is called medium-term scheduling. The job of medium-term scheduling is this dispatcher. So you are the process is in ready queue. See, now this is just a modification to the process diagram or process state diagram. We have ready queue. Now it is shown in terms of queues. This diagram is in terms of states, process states. So this is ready queue. Process is scheduled to the CPU by who is scheduling ready to CPU? Short term or long term? Short term scheduler. And this is from job queue to ready queue by long term scheduler. Okay. So this is long term to long term scheduler will schedule from job queue to ready queue and ready queue to CPU by short term scheduler. Now if there is some interrupt or time quantum ends, then the process is swapped out from CPU. It is called swapped out, and this is partially executed swapped out processes which is scheduled back to ready queue. It is scheduled back in ready queue. And if a process is executing in running state, so this swapped out is this one, swapped out, this and this. Process is removed from CPU and put back in ready state, or it is allocated to wait queue, it is waiting state, then it will perform IO operation, and when IO operation is completed, it is back to the ready state. So this is done by medium term scheduler. Swap out and swap in, both these tasks, swap out and swap in. Medium term scheduler will decide if new arrived process has more priority than current executing process, or current executing process has finished its time allocated, that is time quantum, then that process must be brought back to the ready state. That decision is taken by medium term scheduler. And again, if process has to wait for IO, it has to be shifted to wait queue. Process when finished with IO, it is back to the ready state. So this is swapped out and swapped in. Swapped out from CPU and swapped in into ready queue. So these two decisions are taken by this one, swapped out. Here from here it is swapped out from CPU and it is swapped in. So these two tasks are done by medium term scheduler. So we have seen two queues, three queues, job queue, ready queue and device queue, and three type of schedulers. Job scheduler, that is called long term scheduler. Short term scheduler is, what is the another name for short term scheduler?
CPU scheduler.
Yes, CPU scheduling. And medium term scheduler, there is another name for medium term scheduler, it is called dispatcher. Dispatcher, because it dispatch a process from one state to another state, or one queue to another queue. Dispatcher. So these three schedulers, in short, it is called short term scheduler because it invokes very frequently. So note that fastest state is running state. CPU is much faster than any hardware or software device. So depending upon CPU speed, we have to match all these things with CPU speed. CPU should not be idle. So to keep CPU executing or busy throughout, short-term scheduler has to schedule these processes frequently. So short-term scheduler is invoked frequently or continuously. So it is called short-term scheduler. The time it schedules very fast. It must be milliseconds or less than that. Long-term scheduler is invoked very infrequently. So it depends upon new processes. Whenever the new process is created, that is brought into job queue. And that is not decided by CPU or main memory, it is decided by a programmer when to execute the new process. So it takes time, it is not frequently used, so it is called long-term scheduler. It is scheduling after long time. And short-term scheduler is scheduling very frequently. So the time can be in seconds, minutes, or maybe slow. Long-term scheduler controls degree of multi-programming. Now what is degree of multi-programming? Degree of multi-programming is number of processes currently executing in CPU. If all these things are happening with a process. And what is the process? Process is programming execution. And number of processes currently in execution in whatever the states may be are called degree of multi-programming. Number of processes executing in main memory. And long-term scheduler decides or controls degree of multi-programming, because long-term scheduler will check whether CPU or memory is free or not, whether to load new process into main memory or not. So that decision is taken by long-term scheduler, and long-term scheduler decides degree of multi-programming. Processes can be described as IO bound process or CPU bound process. Every process is not the complete CPU, means it won't just require only CPU for execution. It will also need IO. It needs some input, and whenever there is input or output, process will need IO operation. IO means input and output. Input can be from keyboard, mouse, or any type of hardware. It can also read from memory. It can read from cache memory, or it can read from hard disk. It is not compulsory it will read from the user, or it can read data from a file also. So any files are also called IO devices. Even memory is called IO. Memory is also IO. To read and write data, process use memory. So IO bounded spend more time doing IO than computation, may short CPU burst. So process, you might have studied this in microprocessor. CPU, CPU's process can be IO bound. This IO CPU. Very small CPU burst process is more tend towards input output. Input output it performs more than, and then very short CPU burst. And CPU bound process which spends more time doing computations and very long CPU burst. CPU. So it has very long CPU burst and very short IO burst. Those are called CPU bound process. So process has some IO cycles and some CPU cycles for execution. Then when CPU switch to another process, the system must save the state of old process and load save state of new process. That we have seen in PCB. Whenever the process CPU want to switch between P1 to P2, P1 want to get executed and P2 is currently executing, want to get back to ready state. P1 has to save its states in PCB and P2 has to reload its states from PCB. So they want to exchange. They has to get the save state which process want to leave the CPU, and the process who want to enter the CPU for execution. So it has to load the saved state from the new process. This is called context switch. So what is context switch? It is a time which is involved in this process. When we call process from ready to run and run to ready or run to waiting, that time process has to save its states and come back to ready queue, or process has to reload these states and start executing. So time which is elapsed in between loading or saving the state is called context switch time, and which is an overhead. And till the process is doing this exchange, CPU is idle, CPU is not doing anything. The system does not do no useful work while switching. So this is called overhead, and algorithms must reduce context switches time dependent on hardware support. So the time required to do this context switch is depending upon hardware supported by the system. So I think we'll stop here. In next lecture, we'll start with process creation and all the other process operations. Any queries? We have seen too many concepts today. We have seen what is a process, then what are the states in which process goes through: new, ready, running, waiting, and terminate. Then we have seen queues associated with this process: job queue, ready queue, and device queue. We have also seen schedulers and their job: long-term scheduler, short-term scheduler, and medium-term scheduler. Then we have seen two types of processes: IO bound and CPU bound. IO bound process has less CPU burst than IO burst, and CPU bound process has longer CPU burst than IO burst. CPU cycles, burst means cycles. It performs more time in doing computations than input output, and IO bound processes perform more time, need more time for input output than computations or CPU. Any queries? Very few students has responded to the crossword quiz or other quizzes. Have you studied, have you gone through the PPTs of shell script? Have you tried shell commands, not script, sorry, shell commands on the editor? I got hardly 10 responses in Google form and 20 to 25 responses on Moodle.